Welcome back to the series on the ICF Core Competencies. And we are at number 6, so we're a little past the halfway mark. And today I'm really excited to have Walt Hastings. I met Walt at an ICF meeting in Denver a little while back, and I had forgotten that he was a mentor coach. So this is a little reconnection for me. Really excited to have Walt with us today, talking about powerful questioning, number 6. Walt, thank you for being here. And why don't you just tell us a little bit, give us a definition of active or of powerful questioning.
Powerful questioning are questions that cause the client to think deeply, to ponder, perhaps to see things from a new perspective and to gain new understandings about the person's situation and about himself or herself.
Why don't you tell us what it looks like when someone really is amazing at this? So when someone's mastered this competency, what do you see from that coaching session?
I know that I've asked a powerful question when I see the client kind of sit back, perhaps a stunned look on their face. I can tell that they're thinking deeply, and often they'll say, "Wow, that's a really good question." So here are some questions or some characteristics of powerful questions. Powerful questions almost always are open-ended. By that I mean they cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. Powerful questions always are for the benefit of the client rather than for the coach. In other words, they're not information gathering questions so that the coach can figure out the solution or answer for the client. Powerful questions always are directed toward clarity, discovery, insight, and action rather than a way to correct the client. Powerful questions usually are forward-looking, not backward-looking. Powerful questions arise out of the moment. They arise out of active listening and are based upon the client's agenda, not the coach's agenda. Powerful questions are pure questions that are neutral and come from a non-judgmental heart. And powerful questions often are short, simple, and to the point. Sometimes I call these dumb questions because they are so plain and simple and obvious, such as, what's next? Where are we now? What do you see? Powerful questions also arise out of curiosity. Sometimes powerful questions come from intuition or a hunch. And powerful questions mostly are standalone questions, so they're not preceded with the words so or and that refer back to previous parts of the conversation. And powerful questions usually start with what or how. So those are some of my thoughts on it.
Definitely, I'm working on a series of videos for a coaching school, and they've got it's a samples of MCC and PCC coaching, and I can definitely see how those questions, those are the types of questions that I'm seeing at that level. So yeah, this is kind of cool. I like how this is going, and I like I definitely see what's going on. So if we can flip it over to say, you know, what's going to happen, or what does it look like when someone's not doing this? If you're in your mentor role and you're watching a coach, maybe they're a beginner coach, or they really haven't mastered this, maybe they've mastered. What are some of the types of questions that they do end up asking?
The most common mistake I see in beginning coaches is they ask closed questions. Now, closed questions, there are a few times when it's appropriate for a coach to ask a closed question. But most of the time, closed questions are not useful because they don't go anywhere. They limit the client's choice or expression. And whenever you start questions with things like, do you, did you, could you, would you, should you, can you, will you, have you, are you, or is, those are invariably going to be closed questions. Now, I suggest to beginning coaches, if you can't think of a way to open up a question, just start with the phrase, to what extent? And that will make it an open question. I think that the second most common mistake I see in beginning coaches is they stack questions. So they ask a question, then they realize, well, maybe that wasn't the best question. And so they ask another question to try to clarify that. And sometimes they ask as many as 4 or 5 questions without giving the client a chance to answer. And it's very confusing for the client.
I can definitely see that.
Another common mistake is the beginning coaches often ask information gathering questions. And often they will ask these out of a desire to get more facts. And the bottom line is they think it's their job to provide a solution for the client. And so they're actually moving out of a coaching role into more of a mentoring role.
That's a good distinction, because clearly with doing interviews like this, I ask a lot of questions, and there's a lot of things like active listening is clearly part of doing interviews. But powerful questioning is very different when it comes to coaching. I am gathering information for the viewer, but coaching is very different from that, and it's also a great way to distinguish mentoring from coaching. So thank you for that. Maybe now what you can do is tell us what's the difference, or what is the expectation from a mentor coach, the difference between an ACC, a PCC, and an MCC level coach. What are you watching for? What can an ACC coach get away with that an MCC just would not be able to do?
The biggest differences between a beginning ACC level coach and an MCC level coach is that the ACC level coach is focused mostly on whatever the presenting issue is that the client provided. And so they're focusing on problems and solutions. Often it's outward kinds of things, whereas the MCC coach has more of a desire to help the client grow as a person, to grow as a leader. And so it moves from what in the coaching world we often call what questions to who questions. Now, these don't have anything to do with starting the word with what or who, or the question with what or who, but rather what questions deal with outward, superficial kinds of things, mostly doing kinds of behavior, whereas who questions focus inward on the personhood, on the inside of a person, on their perceptions and their values, and those sort of things. So an experienced MCC coach will ask, I would guess 40% of their questions will be who questions that focus more on personhood rather than the issue that was being brought up. Now, the way that a masterful coach does this is you have to coach on the issue, or else the client will think you're not doing them a very good service. And yet the coach's deep desire is to help the person to grow. The masterful coach does this by relating the issue to various aspects of the person's life. So the coach might ask questions such as, how does this issue impact your core values? Or how does it impact your family life? How does it impact And you can think of, easily 15 or 20 things, aspects that relate to a person's real inner life, their personhood. Or you can do it the other way. You can take the personhood kind of issues and ask, how do your core values relate to this issue? And so the masterful coach is dealing both with the presenting issue, but also helping the person to grow in the process.
So, Walt, you are a mentor coach, and a lot of folks watching this will need a mentor coach sooner or later. So, why don't you tell folks how they can find you, how they can get in touch with you?
My email address is simply WaltHastings@hotmail.com, or my phone number is area code 303-526-9490.
I will put both of those down below so that you can just go ahead and click on them or write them down. But I want to thank you, Walt, for being here today. And I want to thank you for watching. This has been a great interview today. I'm looking forward to continuing on with number 7. So up here, you'll find the next core competency, direct communication. And if you want to watch the whole series, if you just popped in for this one, if you want to start from the beginning, go ahead, click down here, and you will see the whole series of 11 competencies. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.